Let's get political. I wanna get political. Dun, dun, dun,
Let's get all political.
Let's get into it! Well, hello, beautiful people. How's it going? This is, I'm Connor.
And I'm Becky.
And together we are Another World Belfast. We have a little message to show some love. And this is our podcast. Today we're joined by the lovely Kate Nicholl.
Finally happening.
I almost pause for an audience reaction.
I know.
Like we're recording Nolan.
Seán, can you put one of those in later?
Yes.
Yeah. Can we want to order up a Jeffree Star? Yay!
Yay!
Perfect.
Very talented.
So for anyone that doesn't know, Kate is a current MLA with the Alliance Party. You are previously the mayor of Belfast. That's how we got to get to know you. And you are, what did we say the other day? A force for change
Yes.
in our country. I know it's always very difficult to hear. You can hear your titles because it's your job.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to hear. It's embarrassing for someone to say, "Oh, we think you're Brill."
Yeah.
But we, in short, think you're Brill.
One of the soundest people in politics, I think, is a fair way to describe you. And we talk about you a lot, as you know, because whenever we're talking
All
about...
bad.
Yeah, I mean, no.
No.
But, whenever we're
Why has
talking
she got
about
that weird accent?
the situation here, which is really quite a lot, very complex, we will always, talk about some of the negative things that happen, but it's really also important to say alongside that there's also really amazing people here that care. They care and are trying to do something different. So your name nearly always gets checked in that respect too. So fair play to you for coming on and telling us that we can ask you anything.
You can ask me anything.
What are you wearing?
Oh, do you like my t-shirt? I was gifted this when I was the mayor of Belfast.
Gorgeous.
Another World Belfast, show some love. So I like the
Favorite
brand.
t-shirt?
Love it.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm doing Channel 4 News later. So I'll keep it on for that.
Oh, good on you! It happens to us. It's quite a bit now, actually, where people get an opportunity, and it's what we do as an organisation. But you get an opportunity, and then you share the platform. You really think of who you can sort of attach or what you can do. And so many times we have been sent something that's in the telly, or someone's on the news and they're doing something, and they're wearing the Show Some Love, which is just it's wonderful.
A lot of graffiti artists are very good for that as well.
Yeah,
for getting the press. So I suppose we should probably dive straight in and ask you some questions and things. Although we do say that it's more of a conversation than an interview in the traditional sense. But whenever I was doing my sort of middle of the night researching on all of the Wikipedia stuff and all the rest of it, which is, some of it is like, whoa, really? in an impressive way, I realised that we share a piece of history in that we both went to Methody. Now, in fairness,
you're a Methody girl.
I had already left by the time you started. But I sort of had that in the back of my brain somewhere. And you came to Belfast at 12, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you went straight in. That was your first encounter with Belfast?
Went straight into Methody. I remember I arrived and there was some debate about whether I would go into Form 2 or Form 1, because in Zimbabwe you start school a year later. So I hadn't actually finished primary school. But my mum, who's awesome and really wise, didn't like the idea of me starting in second year, also having a weird accent, not having finished school. So they put me in first year. And I went to Methody, and because I hadn't done the 11 plus, I thought it was an interview to see if I liked the school and I wanted to go there. And so when I went in, I asked them questions about what kind of school it was. And then I thought, no, I'm happy enough to go here. And I have a mixed relationship with it, I would
Normally
say.
I say, I went to Methody, and I usually counter that with sorry.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm grateful for what I got from it, but I'm also sort of very aware of how it's perceived in Belfast.
Jamie Dornan went there, and Elizabeth Day, and I remember hearing their podcast and them talking about it, and they both really hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. I really struggled the first couple of years, but that was because I was foreign and my whole life has just changed. Yeah. But I think because it's such a big school, you'll always find your people. And so I found people, But I have fond memories of it, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that came from it. And I'm mainly just grateful that I'm not a teenager anymore and I'm away from it. I feel like I didn't peak at high school, and I'm really grateful that that didn't happen.
Yeah, same. Do you know, Jamie Dornan was in the year, I think maybe 2 years below me. And I was friendly with his sister Lisa as well, who was still sort of seen, and Jessica as well. So we were. This is like one of those.
We're basically close personal friends
joke
with a lot of celebrities, to be honest.
We joke about like the middle class Olympics, you know, and with our friends and volunteers and stuff. And one of the reasons I got to know them was because we were all on the ski racing team together. Stop! Oh yeah. Yeah, that happened.
Well, that's like such a methody team to have.
Yeah.
The Dornans, what I love about them is their dad, like Jim Dornan. Did you ever meet him?
Never.
Like, absolute hero. And whenever we were doing like the activism on abortion, and people just couldn't handle the conversation. Him coming out and being brave enough to speak about it really actually helped shift the narrative around it. So like Jamie's gorgeous and his family are obviously really talented, and but for me the hero is Jim. Like he's
their daddy.
Yeah.
He was really he was a real sort of political commentator. You know, he was always on the news, always brave to sort of speak out, and also speak out about issues that maybe don't necessarily align with the boxes that we're put into here.
Yeah.
You know, that you are from a traditionally unionist background, but that you that sometimes when he spoke, that it sort of seemed like the lines were blurred. It maybe makes people a little bit more brave to tell the truth, to have the discussion, to not be, because we're brought up here to fear that, to sort of fear saying it out loud, because it was a safety thing, you know, and to watch that in the news and watch someone of such major standing within the community make comment is. It's always very helpful, you know.
One of the things I remember him talking about was Brexit. You know, like was coming out and actually talking about, guys, we've kind of got a bit of a good deal here. You know, I don't think that really, as a country, we should be risking any of the billions of pounds that are coming from Europe, because it's kind of holding everything together. You know, and now look where we are.
He was right.
Yeah.
Like Kenneth Branagh dedicated. I remember the film premiere that I went to when I was mayor and got to speak at. He dedicated that evening that film to Jim Dornan at the premiere.
I didn't know that. That's so
which was really cool. Yeah, so I'm glad he got the recognition.
Do you know, it's Connor did a TED Talk a few years ago, and
we don't mention it very much.
Yeah, we have to do a TED Talk counter now as
we
well.
actually don't. It was really pretty traumatic. Shout out to TEDx. You're not incredible.
Yeah, it was it was a formative experience in that
it was very stressful.
It was Connor was still sort of like getting active therapy for some of the things that they were talking about on the stage. So, but actually, the idea of creating their own narrative and their own story was actually really quite a powerful thing, because it let them sort of view from above what it was that their last sort of couple of years had been like. But on that day, Jess was doing her TED Talk on the same day. So I got to sort of see her for the first time in many years, and then we've seen her a couple of times since, and hopefully we'll get to maybe work together.
It's
and
nice.
She does cool stuff with interiors and things. Very, very switched on person.
I think it's those moments are gorgeous when it's just, you know, because it's a show, and it's glitzy, and there's loads of people there, and you're in Stormont, and it's fancy. You know, it's a real privilege to be able to take a stage like that. But beyond all of that and all the excitement, it's nice to have that little moment just before where you're just two humans, and actually it feels very childlike in that space when you're frightened, just to sort of support each other. And I think actually maybe it helped, because at the time I was sort of on the mental Richter scale, I was way up there. I was sort of middle of a breakdown, and I think for her that was maybe quite helpful, because she was like, God, I really thought I was struggling to get on this stage.
But I'm not as bad as you.
But no.
At least I'm not having a breakdown. Okay, I can do this.
Yeah, they're like,
that sounds awful though.
Yeah.
That sounds like a horrible experience.
It was, it was good. It was good to be able to sort of say it out loud. It really helped us in terms of our relationship, to be able to discuss that sort of openly, to be able to put it together. I'm really proud of it. In fairness, I am really proud of it.
You should be, but I would say, like, as somebody whose job it was, you know, to work in a professional capacity with creative people, I would say that that's not their skill. Like, because creative people do not work in a sort of more formulaic and ordered way, and that was really all that they had the capacity to kind of interact with.
It's if you don't have the headspace to do it, you know, if your mental health isn't good enough, then just don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well,
because you can re-traumatize people having them talk about their own story if they're not ready to. But either way, it turned out to be a good thing. But there's loads more TEDs going all across the country now too, which is nice to see.
I did
and
one, but it wasn't very good, so don't draw attention to it. I did it when I was married.
Actually, now that you say,
yeah.
It was pretty crap, to be honest.
We were actually not going to mention it, Kate.
Yeah,
to be honest.
We were a bit scundered for you, to be honest. Like,
it wasn't good. It wasn't my finest work. No.
We got about halfway through it, and we just thought, nah.
Snore.
Only joking.
You got through further than I did when I tried to do much of it.
Funny.
I suppose. Well, the other question that I wanted to ask you, and I think it's kind of one of the most important things for anybody who's in politics, is like, what was it that made you want to get into politics?
I fell into it. This was not an intentional decision.
That's the best start that you can give to that as well. You know,
and I don't think you should really trust people who have known since they were little that that's what they want to do.
Yes.
So my grandparents were anti-apartheid activists in South Africa, and I grew up kind of having quite a strong sense of social justice. I also lived in a massively unequal society and was very privileged. You don't get more privileged than a white African. And then I moved here. My parents' marriage had broken down, and my mum and I had been in Zimbabwe for a while, and then we moved to Belfast and we had nothing. And we'd gone from being very privileged to really being very poor. And I found it really hard fitting in, but I've always had this sense that if it was so difficult for me fitting in, and I was white, and I had my mom with me, and I had support, and I went to a good school, and what is it like for other people? So I have a strong feeling of what it's like being an outsider, but also a strong sense of my own privilege. And a strong sense of pride of where I came from, and my grandparents and them fighting for what was right. So I always knew I wanted to be involved in some kind of activism, and I thought I'd probably work for a charity or NGO.
Don't do that.
No.
It doesn't pay very well.
Yeah.
Not that your job does.
Yeah, but you've found yourself on the right path.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
No, I married an accountant, so it meant that I could do my own.
Well.
And that is balance.
That's balance. So I just had this, I don't know, I just had this feeling that I wanted to do something to support people, but I wasn't sure what it was. And I had gone to university in London and had thought that I was super cosmopolitan and I was gonna find my niche in London, and actually I just couldn't wait to come back, and every time I came back and saw my mum I just felt relieved, and I realized this was where I was meant to live. And then I thought, well, I'll study law because I didn't know what else to do, and I was waiting to start my law conversion, and I was working in a restaurant, and I wanted to get a bit of work experience, so I emailed Anna Lowe's office and asked if I could do a work experience.
The legendary MLA.
She's the first person I ever voted for. Just loved how she talked about abortion. She talked about environmentalism. She supported migrants. She just class, wore a leather jacket. Just so cool. And I went to do 1 week work experience with her, and I just loved her, and I loved what she was doing, and it just felt important. So I started working in the restaurant in the evenings and just going into her office every day.
Great.
And then eventually a job opened up, and I think they knew if they didn't give it to me, I was just going to keep coming in anyway. So she gave me the job, and that kind of really kind of snowballed from there. Had the opportunity to become a counsellor, and I took it. And then had the opportunity to run for MLA, and I took it. But Anna has been my real inspiration, and her way of doing politics, being progressive and warm, and actually a bit of a reluctant politician. I don't want to do this forever, and I don't ever want to be paranoid and feel like I have to do what I need to keep my seat. That means your integrity is gone then, and then it's time for me to get out if that happens. So it's great right now. Well, it will be great right now when everything's up and running, and it's a real privilege. And I'm excited, but I also don't feel like I have to do this forever. There are different ways of making change, as you guys know. So, yeah.
But that it can the connection between politics and the third sector, that working together, which is something you've really kind of focused in on and really worked hard to kind of establish, is where change is, you know, because no matter how many protests we go to and how loud we shout, you still you still need to work within the system that exists to really make substantial, sustainable change happen. You know, it's not just a little sort of pop-up or a little project. It's something that's really going to change people's experience.
I think you see best practice and the creativity and like the third sector really pushes boundaries and is innovative and comes up with ways of doing things, and then it's our job to take that and try and scale it up. One of the problems I have is that we see so much amazing work happening in different sectors, but it's only reaching small groups of people. And I'm always thinking about the people who are then falling through the gaps. Like, it's really great that, you know, these people from kind of this community are getting the support, but what about the people, you know, like down the road who just fall through? So I think there needs to be more of how I sometimes worry that departments or politicians will see, okay, well, they're doing this great work with like refugees and we funded that, so that's our responsibility done. They're not looking at how they actually change the systems. And that's something I'm interested in, how we take what's happening and expand it so that...
Yes.
Even like from a charitable perspective as well, like, and we've been a CIC for a very long time, but we applied for our charity status way back in May last year, so we know that our case worker has sort of signed us off, and we're just waiting for the commissioner to give us our number. But and being a charity will make a big difference. Being a CIC doesn't really. It gives you a bit of accountability, which we sought. Wee bit of funding you can apply for, but not much. But I think like even the whole structure of how as a charity you apply for funding is fundamentally broken as well. It's so frustrating that even like with the bigger pots that you can get with things like the lottery, you know, everything is fixated on projects. It's like whenever the thing that people need the most is a building, staff, lighting, heating, tables and chairs, and then people to be able to deliver stuff, whether that's in delivering counselling, whether it's in health services that are in the community, whether it's in delivering creative stuff for mental health or whatever that is. But people are sort of, there's this like sort of niche expectancy that it's, and sometimes it's for $2,000.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, what the hell can anybody really do with $2,000?
And the amount of time that you're putting into these applications.
Yeah.
I think that is a problem. I think the kind of, especially with good relations funding, the obsession with orange and green, like we need to widen that scope. That's like massively important. I think those are massive problems with how it's.
You said a line whenever you were mayor, and you know you're really good. And I think all of us who sort of speak out about issues have to try and make sure that we're being consistent in what we say. So we're saying the same message over and over again, and then it reaches people. And that you said often that we're no longer two communities, and we're actually many, many communities, you know, and you can even think of that as like the queer community as a community. Do you know what I mean? But now we're a much more diverse and vibrant society as a result of that. But it means that a lot of the solutions and things that were put in place to do two communities and manage all of the complexity of that, it has some relevance still, but it's only part of the way there, you know? So we then would quote you on that quite a lot, like since you said it.
I don't quote you, I just take it.
You use it.
I just take it, and people will say, does Kate Nicholl not say that? And I say,
Yeah, she copied us.
I copied you.
She stole it.
You heard it here first. It was plagiarism.
But we just outed ourselves.
But also, you know, I think of like the the Roma women, the Roma hub. And there was such problems with that because they got their funding. But then there was this expectation that, you know, you had to account for how many people had done a course and like what the outcomes had been. And for a lot of these women, even just getting them into the room was like the achievement. So you have to have flexibility around the funding and just make it, target it and personalize it and make sure it's actually delivering on what you want, not what like looks good on a piece of paper. Like everything is different, and what you're trying to create is different for every sector.
Yeah,
it's maybe just trusting people. And I get that there's bad actors out there, and that people in the past have, I don't know, stolen millions from whatever establishment, charity, you know. I get that that's happened, but there are good humans out there. I think there should be more space to sit in front of someone, have a conversation, and for that person, for that decision maker to be trusted, to say, I believe them, and I really think it's going to make a difference. And yes, it doesn't fit into your necessarily our structure, but it does. It's going to do loads of good, and their community's really on board, and they're really engaged, and they're really creative, or whatever else it is. It's then maybe just giving those people a little bit more power, you know, to say, I believe in that. You know, I think it's great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inefficiencies as well. You know, like I can see so much of the good questions that get asked whenever you want to set up a charity. Like, so for example, if somebody wants to set something up, one of the first things they'll say is, and I understand why, is there anybody else already doing this that you could just go and help them? You know, there's a bit of a, especially with social media, and, you know, there's a really sort of stinking thing that's happening at the minute where people are doing something that is good, which they should just do, but then they're photographing it, or they're like using it as a means to promote their business, or do you know what I mean? And there's so many like little projects popping up, or we regularly will get people ask us for advice. Oh, I have this idea, I want to do this thing. Now, if it's a unique idea based on their existing business or skill set or whatever, we'll try and give them some advice on it.
It's based on need.
Yeah,
which is sort
based
of number
on
one.
need. Yeah, it's something new. But the amount of times that we've said to people, don't do it. Don't go through the administration of trying to set up your own thing whenever these guys just down the road are crying out for help and would love your expertise to jump in and be able to help them, you know. But there's a real like possessiveness, I think, whenever it comes to that, you know, it's ego as well.
Kira Fitzpatrick, who is just like the best, talks about kind of dignity and the purpose behind charity work and what you're really seeking to achieve. And for a lot of people, I think they maybe their heart is in the right place, but they want to be seen to be doing good, and that robs dignity of the people that you're trying to help and support, you know. And I think that's so true. Like need is crucial. What do they need, and how are you best able to support them in a dignidied way that I don't know. I think Kira would be a really great person for you to talk to on the podcast because she's so interesting. Her understanding of kind of social welfare and her ideas for how we actually tackle things in a meaningful way. Like she's been really inspirational to me, and the work on child poverty and and everything she does is about like dignity and how you are ensuring the best of people. So like when I see that stuff on social media of like, here I am handing out a food package and like, you know,
we often ask ourselves as sort of one of the qualifying sort of questions whenever we're doing something, if it's going to do any more harm than good, and that doesn't stop at our border. That's a global thing. So if you order a T-shirt, best be sure that if you're going to wear, and we say this a lot, but if you're going to get a T-shirt that says "You go, girl," that some girl hasn't had to make that T-shirt. That some girl hasn't had in Bangladesh or wherever else hasn't had to lose her education for you to get something a couple of pounds cheaper. Like we spend so much of our time, especially with artist friends and that, people that don't really have that much money, but they're doing a wee bit of merch or whatever, just saying, look, people will pay it. Stick another £5 on it, but pay that extra £5 for the thing, because it means then, one, it's better quality, but it means then you can at least be a wee bit more sure of that it's not just about it's not just for the show of it all, you know, that we've really sort of put the work in. But I think that's very helpful, is asking that question, like, are we doing any more harm than good? And then probably that goes out from not just our world and merch and how we make and sell things to fundraise, but out into the world. You know, you can ask that question of just like, does my support of this community and this project, does it have a negative impact? You know, is there a negative impact for that neighbouring community? Is there, you think about social enterprises or possibly businesses like Tom's Shoes, you know, where they're like, oh, well, you buy a pair of shoes and we'll give one to this poor African person or whatever. And then you have to think about that, you know, you have to think about that African or South American or wherever else village where you're dropping those loads of shoes, and there's a person in that village that makes shoes.
Yeah, that doesn't have a job.
There's now no.
They just have like 20 boxes of Tom's shoes and not what they actually need.
And Tom's shoes that like hopefully Tom's don't reach out, or maybe hopefully they do.
You can help them.
Yeah.
But you know, shoes that aren't exactly made for heavy wear. You know, they're sort of like they're based on boating shoes and yacht shoes. But it's just giving it like a little bit of extra thought and knowing as well when you ask those questions. We've got ourselves in trouble for doing that in the past, and we'll take that on board, and it's just part of our job. But it's asking those questions, and then if you are asking them yourself as an organisation, it's not taking it personally.
Yeah.
We like the idea of when someone asks, we would say that we really try to be bulletproof, because people will try to take pot shots, but for people to say, well, what about that cotton? Where does that come from? And I love that we know where it comes from. Yeah. And what about that, tin or whatever, and say, well, actually, this was the process of buying this, and it was the reason for doing it.
And it's not like that is authentic. It's the right reasons. It's not some marketing ploy, which is what, like, maybe you buy this and I'll give this to this person, like maybe just give them some money or whatever they need.
Give them, well, that's the key thing. Give them what they need.
Like, not that long ago, that everybody was sort of up in arms sending vans from here driving to the Ukraine with 12 packs of water from Lidl, tins of baked beans and all the rest of it. And that's like one of those examples of people have great intentions, and some do. Other people are doing that because they sort of want to have the look of that. And I'm sort of thinking of a specific example. But no, you're blocking routes that people need to bring in, like
medicine.
Yeah. There are many neighbouring countries where actually people could just buy the stuff. It would get there quicker. They'd buy it at a local rate, so they'd get more of it. Just give them your money. People are really, really suspicious of that, and it's like, I don't know. I think the distrust in the sector.
Yeah. And trust in people. Like, I think people generally are intrinsically good. Like, when they're not. Right. When they're not having their best days, maybe they need a bit of support or some training, or, maybe they're in pain or whatever. But generally, I think people are good. And so you should generally trust them. For me, when the work that I do with asylum seekers and refugees is guided completely by them. So I go to people like PPR who will translate their class. And they'll say to me, we were talking to this family and actually they want you to come into the hotel because they want to talk to you. I only ever go into the hotels when I'm invited by the people who live in them.
Yes.
And then I do what I can. And they tell me what they need. And then that's what I do. I don't think, oh, well, I really want to do something to support refugees, so I'm going to set up a support group. Yeah. Like, they haven't asked me for that. That's not their need. What they need is someone to advocate for them in terms of getting their child into school, and I can do that. Yeah. And I think with any kind of work, anything to do with anything you're doing, just whoever you're trying to help, ask them what they need, and then do that. Don't think you understand other people's experiences, because you generally don't.
Yeah. One of the things that you said earlier on was about feeling like you were in the right place, doing the right thing. And it occurred to me at the time that for me, that feels like, we feel like that at the minute with what we're doing as well. And we talk about that as like being in the flow, like being in a creative flow. And I was listening to the Stephen Bartlett podcast maybe about a week or so ago, and he was interviewing Jay Shetty. And for the first time I heard, we hear Blind Boy talking about the flow, like it's a thing that's very, very well known and understood, but I've never heard anybody attempt to explain it. And Jay Shetty had a go at it, and I think he really nailed it. And it said that it's the point where you're working or creating or living, and it's where challenge meets skill. Where you feel like you've got to a point where you can handle it, or you can take the growth that sits within the challenge. That you've got it in you, or you can grow to meet it. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about as well was in terms of change and in terms of the climate that we're in right now, we also were just like, holy shit, we booked Kate and everything's just about to change in this country. Talk about being in the flow. Do you know what I mean? We were just like watching the news like, oh my god, like, please don't cancel. If we would have understood
we thought that the sitting was going to be today, so yeah, the timing has actually been perfect.
We were like, are we going to have to make our way to Stormont? Like, that's fine.
Oh yeah, could have done it there.
We'll do it on the steps. Yeah.
That's for part 2.
Yeah, follow up.
But one of the things, like, and we're very aware that one of the things that Alliance is talking about a lot, and for really good reason, is that the ability for one party to be able to topple again, and how do we reform the system so that doesn't happen again? I think that's like a massively relevant topic at the minute. But within that, one of the things that comes up for us all the time is the question of, does complete change need to happen, or can you make change from within? You know, and that isn't just true of politics. You know, it's a question about things like religious institutions or big charitable institutions. You know, it's like, where do you get to the point where, even with Jeremy Corbyn, actually, you know, he was trying to have conversations and dialogues, and then he was called a IRA sympathiser and a Hamas lover, and you know what I mean? But he was trying to make change from within, and then he was ousted. How do you feel about that now with the situation that you're in?
Yeah, so I mean, like, reform is, like, it has to happen. You can't just keep doing this. And, like, the other parties have been a bit hesitant about it. I understand, like, SDLP and UUP were more like, they were architects of the Good Friday Agreement, and so they're nervous that you change something and it unravels the whole thing. But it's not this sacred text. Like, it was always designed to be a long-term project. Sinn Féin and DUP, I reckon, like, it kind of suits them to have that, you know, even though they would say that obviously there's a case for reform. I think that stability and functioning government is really important to make the long-term change which is needed. And if you have this hanging over you the whole time that someone can just collapse everything because they choose to.
Totally.
It's just wrong. And actually the best way to protect the Good Friday Agreement is to protect the institutions, and how you do that is by having reform. The principles that, like, underpin it about kind of power sharing and human rights and all those things will always be valid and will still be protected, but reform of the institutions has to happen. In terms of, like, the scale of change, I think that's such an interesting question, and I'm really experiencing it with the work I'm doing on childcare right now, because the childcare system is just, like, in crisis, and what is happening in England, this kind of failed Tory policy, is not something that we should be replicating. And a lot of people are keen to jump on it because parents are desperate and they just want a quick win. And it's an easy thing to say, we're going to give you 3 hours of childcare, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And actually how we look at the system has to be massive reform. But you have to bring people along with you. And so I think the balance of kind of activists and actually some of the smaller parties, to be fair to them, I think have a really important role. Yeah. Because the more they kind of, and the more the sectors talk about kind of progressive change and what we're trying to see, the more it brings the kind of maybe the bigger parties along, because they realize that they have to move with it. But you're never going to be able to, you can't just switch everything off and, like, build from scratch again.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's
our schools
revolution.
are still going. Yeah. Are
you up for that? Now Naomi Long is watching.
If the assembly collapses one more time, we don't reform, I'll come join the revolution. Yeah, like, I mean, I want things to be better, and I want to live in a progressive society where like, we do things for the right reasons, and it's evidence based, and it's not some kind of, like, moralistic. Yeah, you know, I'm just sick of the slow pace of change. But I also recognize that for some people it is scary and you have to bring them along. So I think my job as a politician is to amplify, like, the voices and the experiences of people and make the case for change. But I always try to do it in as diplomatic a way as possible, because I know how I feel when someone shouts at me, and that just makes me dig my heels in even stronger. So I think the different styles, and it's really, like, you need those different styles in politics. I think change is really needed. And I think how we do it is, you've talked about this before, but how you bring the human story into things and how you showcase the need for it. So I'm not up for the revolution just yet, but, like, collapses one more time then. I'll join it.
We are looking at a leader, and we'd like someone sort of, you know, well presented, very polite.
That wouldn't be us.
Someone very friendly. You know, maybe a mother. Maybe you could be up there with. You could be children in arms. You know, children in arms.
Children in arms. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think about it.
Well, it would be remiss of us not to also mention, you know, in terms, you actually, something that I came across last night was you speaking in favour of legalisation and regulation of cannabis.
Yes.
I was so, like, all biz to see that, because that's the progressive stuff that we need to be talking about.
Can I tell you how this came about?
Please.
Let me tell you how the story happened. Okay. So Rodney Edwards, who is a Fermanagh journalist, my husband's from Fermanagh, had been in touch with me about interviewing me when I was mayor. And I said, yeah, like very happy to be interviewed with you. Like kind of thought, oh, like he's really friendly. It's going to be easy. My eyes were opened. We were having a nice conversation about my childhood, all these different things. And then he said to me, and meant to ask, have you ever taken any drugs? Which is
Whoa!
like,
That was our next question.
It's not an ideal question to be asked when you're a politician.
Yeah.
And I gave an honest kind of answer, and I said, I'm pretty square, and my mum used to take loads of drugs when she was younger, and I grew up hearing about her stories about like acid trips and all sorts of things, and it scared me, and I'm really square, but I think how we deal with this is the wrong way. I think criminalizing it is a mistake.
Yeah.
And that night, I was like, oh my gosh, like, Naomi's going to kill me. The only thing that terrifies me more than something happening to my children is Naomi calling me and me getting a bollocking from her. So I was absolutely terrified. And I thought, oh my God, I've said this about legal decriminalization of drugs and how we deal with it. And I'm going to be in so much trouble. The same interview, he had asked me my view on the constitutional question. Sorry if I'm jumping into all your juicy questions.
No, at all. Go for it.
But he said to me, like, what's my view on the Constitution? And I said, well, like, I'm open-minded and I want to hear the conversations. Brexit has shown me that you don't jump into anything.
Yeah.
I am interested in any conversation about our future and what is going to be best for my family. And that is ultimately how I will decide, because our votes are all equal. What I would say is that I've seen more conversations around what a new Ireland would look like. And I would like to see more around unionists making the case for a progressive Northern Ireland in the Union. Thought nothing of it, thought that's like a totally normal like thing to say, like pretty sensible, common sense, And I couldn't sleep because I'd been talking about drugs and I thought I'm going to be in so much trouble. 3 days later, headline, Kate Nicholl says unionists need to talk more about protecting the union. And I'm still getting trolled for it.
Yeah.
No one mentioned the drugs. In fact, I got like a number of letters from like these like pro legalization of cannabis groups who, and there's like a Reddit thread about how like how this was great coming from an alliance politician. So yeah, that came out like unsurprised, like it was quite surprising, but.
We definitely need to put like a Thug Life meme on you. You know, one of those like tumbling glasses to come in with a big like bifter.
We were going to bring one.
Yeah.
I say we were.
A fake one.
A fake one.
You can put one on. I think it really goes with my image.
I have it was actually a children's event. It was a children's awards thing, and I got a big candy floss. And when I had eaten the candy floss, it looked like, it sort of looks like a big sort of novelty spliff. And I, forgetting that I was at a children's awards event, actually wearing a dress, bright yellow hair, so it's really, it was noticeable. I then turned to the organiser and the CEO of that charity, I won't say what it was, and I went, yo, and she just went, put it down.
You didn't tell me that. That one just came out. No, I wasn't there.
See, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah. Connor told me that you straddle like
they give us a couple of tickets.
Yeah.
One of our volunteers was actually up for an award, and they gave us a couple of tickets, and we just couldn't afford the extra one. Wasn't that?
And we
wasn't
wanted.
What it was?
It was a young volunteer. It was a young volunteer that we had nominated for the award, and then they won. And but there was 2 guest tickets to go with, and we wanted their mummy to go along too. So just Connor went.
It was a really
now
good
you
night.
know it's risky.
Yeah.
Becky needs to be there.
Well, Becky came to pick us up afterwards, and she was outside in the van, and you had called, and you didn't know that we had won the award. She won the award.
Yeah.
So I had it behind my back, and I was walking out. But as I was sort of focused on holding this award behind my back, sort of walking in these heels down the Stormont Hotel, I walked up to you, and you were like, "How many drinks have you had?" And it was free. Yeah, I think it was maybe 1 free, and I maybe had 10.
Yeah.
Like you just get to know whoever's serving, and it's like it queer meets queer across the bar, and they're like, you can have anything you want.
I didn't know that.
But you then because I had to go back inside, but I told you we won, and then through the van window, you were like, just. Connor, this is a children's event. Yeah. Like, you're not going to have any more drinks.
The audience.
Their mummy doesn't drink, so actually I think I was drinking their drinks, so that was the problem.
Like table.
Becky's the voice of reason. I don't really drink when I go to any of those events. I'm terrified of kind of
Fair
what
enough.
could potentially
What could happen?
Yeah.
Well, talking of those events, we were at an establishment event last night.
Establishment.
We now say that because you said this is really like an establishment event at another event that we were at. So we were at an event last night. We're allowed to say that. We're allowed to say that out loud.
Yeah,
we were
absolutely.
at an event last night, and Kate was. I'm just going to tell the truth. Kate was wasted, embarrassingly drunk.
Yeah.
Not true.
No, actually not true at all.
Asleep in the corner.
Yeah.
Very
In
polite.
fairness, we were at home and in bed by 10 o'clock as well.
know,
Like, 'cause
so
we knew you were
restrained.
coming in to see
Yeah.
us.
Well, not for sort of my tries and want to get you to Union Street.
Yeah.
You had booked us a taxi and you were like, no, it's driving. We're not taking it to a bar.
Connor said that he uses the pets as a reason to get you home. Like when
Oh, the other way around.
In
The other way around.
Yeah.
Okay, it works.
But it's we only have, everybody only has finite energy, and as much as that is like a real fun group to go and party with, and you always nearly always end up in Union Street or one of the gay bars. Like we just had to say no, and we were gutted too because
Very
it was
great, no.
the crack was 90, as they say.
It was really
It
fun.
was a great event. Yeah.
Stuff like that is so powerful and good on them and other people that invite. They're going to invite you. You're an MLA. You know, you're the face of so many things around the country, and you're a person of interest, I guess, for medium things. Or a person. Remember that person in that youth centre that said.
So it was actually at City Hall.
Oh, it was at City
and all
Hall.
the kids. I think you were there. Actually, it was the night that you were modelling the fashion show. Do you remember
Oh,
the outfit
darn.
was made for you?
I actually had a couple of drinks before that. That was absolutely
sure you
terrifying.
did.
It was awful.
Steal your nerves. Well, we were just hanging out outside. I think Connor was having a smoke or something like that, and all these young ones were all like just sort of hanging around him, like, "What are you?" Like the deliciousness of like person in
We're
dress.
making TikTok videos
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
having fun.
And the youth leader came up and went, "Excuse me, don't mind me asking, but are you some people of importance?" And we were like, "No."
Well, I said, I like to think
Depends
that I
what you
am
mean.
important, but no.
Not any more than anybody else, But it was just such a funny way to ask it.
I love it though. I'd gone to that. I'd gone to the Christmas event. Is like the one that we were at. Is the one
Yes.
that you like. You have to go to because you know you're going to see everyone from every
Yeah.
organization, and I know I've always known that's an important one to go to. And I remember going in and I was so tired, and then suddenly I just saw this like flash of hair.
Yeah.
And the fan.
The two of you, and it was just class. Like, you're doing really great work, and you're bringing kind of the causes and things you're working on to a platform that maybe hasn't really been exposed to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really great. Really
It's
cool
kind
to
of
see you at them.
it's the reason for wearing the dress and having the hair and bringing the clacky fan. It's just start a conversation so that and it's also maybe it's to repel the people that are not here for the conversation. They just disappear. But people who are up for it, and it's if it's not a woman in a position of power, it can be someone's partner or someone's wife that feels very safe outside to say, "Oh, I really love what you're wearing. Here, actually, my other half does such and such, and they run whatever it is fun." It's such a privilege to be there. One, because it's fun and there's a free bar. You don't drink at the things, which is daft. It's your job, but we drink at the things. And
Not always, but most of the time.
I think a lot of people do, in fairness.
But the opportunity then to kind of to make your way around that room and have really impactful conversations, the amount of opportunities we've got out of it.
Oh my God, the connections that we've made. Like one of my favourite connections that we've made through those events has been like Lynn Carville from Women's Tech.
Oh, she's
Oh,
like,
she's class.
yeah.
Like we went from like there was an idea that we were being asked to work on for Arts Sector for an upcoming project, which I don't think's been announced yet, so I can't say specifically what it is. But we it's just that habit of going, do you know who you need to speak to, or who else can we get
Yeah.
And
involved?
that's the best thing about Belfast is that
Yeah.
we're this size where actually everyone is actually really accessible.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
everyone knows and everyone can signpost you to... I love that about our city. I think it's one
Yeah.
of the best things. And especially in the third sector, you really find it.
Suppose in the third sector, but even our country as a whole, in the political world, it's you can make, and we think about this for our work too. But you can make a real difference having a conversation at a time. So you're in that hotel and you're helping those people to get the services or the items or whatever it is that they need. But that then will start a conversation somewhere else. Who then someone in PPR hears about that, and then the word spreads. You know, because there's the face and there's what people put out there in terms of social media and all the rest of it. But then there's the kind of the
actions speak louder than words.
Yes, you know, there's sort
I
of
think
the word on the
key
street
thing, you know.
We put it out to our social media followers to say, basically, you said that we can ask you anything, and that they should send us in some questions. And actually, we actually expressly said,
what was I doing? I didn't tell my press office this.
Yeah.
It's very brave because it seems strange to say that out loud, but it is unusual.
It
you know,
is,
you're
yeah.
an MLA, and we are sometimes very sweary, crazy, shouty activists.
Yeah.
And it is very brave, but we put it out to everyone to ask the questions, and we expressly said we want spice, like we want it to be, you know, make it interesting, make it fun. And honestly, the vast majority of the feedback was just like, Aksha's lovely.
Ask
and I
her
did
how
a
it
thing.
feels to be a legend.
Yeah, that was the first
Feels
question.
great.
Aksha's lovely, and I work with her here. And Aksha did this brilliant thing when we were a mayor, and we're sitting looking at it like, really? Like, is there? Give us
Seriously,
some
guys,
doubt.
come on. Just like, does everybody like you? You know, maybe it's just like we were talking about the Venn diagram the other week about like people that like Drag Race and people that watch our podcast, and that Venn diagram is a circle. But I think probably it's the same thing with like people that like and follow your work and what you do and who you are and how human you are in that, which I think is kind of it. I think that's the vital
that's
thing.
important.
And potentially people that follow our podcast also would have that same opinion. So we got no spice at all. Well, I think the only real spice is kind of like coming from us. Do you
Well,
know?
we did get it. We did actually get a bit of spice.
Oh, really?
We got her snog, marry, avoid.
Yes.
So if you're up for playing snog, marry, avoid,
Let's do it.
we have a really quite a good one for
Yeah.
you.
So Snog, Marry, Avoid, Emma Little Pangeli, Naomi Long, and Michelle O'Neill.
Wow. There goes your career.
That's your spice.
So snog, marry, avoid.
Snog,
We're
marry,
not.
avoid.
We're not actually. We don't have to sleep with anyone.
Yeah. And there's no
Okay.
killing.
So I actually like on a personal level really like Emma. She's always
Good.
really nice to me, and Michelle is as well. So that's a really tough one. I guess I will say that I'll snog Michelle, marry Naomi, and avoid Emma. But that is only because the Assembly is down. If the Assembly was pulled down by Sinn Féin, then I would reverse my
You'd be-
snog.
wow.
You're
But
masterful.
So what we were
That
going
was
to also
such a good.
add.
Like, I don't mind that political answer. That was
No.
really
I
good.
answered it.
Yeah, that was really good.
Only that we don't have a props budget. I wanted. We have so many ideas that if we had a budget, it would be brilliant.
Yeah.
But I wanted a political button.
Yeah.
So when you're too political, we can smash it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like a shade button.
Just make the noise.
But that's the perfect answer.
No, you could like that's kind of what the ability to speak in that way does give you. You know, it's not like you said something, but without actually like throwing any stones or reading anybody too hard.
No, but like the thing is, like the DUP as a party and the positions that they've taken have been so damaging, and what they've done like the last 2 years has been like unforgivable.
Yeah.
But then within the party are human beings who like are doing what they think is right. Like Edwin Poots, his views, like I just think like I cannot get my head around some of the things that he thinks.
Yeah.
When I was an MLA who had newly elected, didn't think I was getting elected, by the way, thought I was getting a year maternity leave, and then I had this baby and I had to go to work with the 2-week-old baby. The person who always stopped me to ask how my kids were, how I was doing, who stopped Naomi to say, oh, I saw Kate looking a bit tired, is she okay? Like, was Edwin Poots. So I don't agree with his politics, but like he's a person, he's a human being, he's got family. Like I think that being able to connect on that human level is actually going to be so important for us to move forward now. Like where it's been so toxic and relationships are so damaged and like there's understandably frustration and anger, and I have that, but I also know that if we're actually going to make this place work, then we're going to have to really like nurture those like human relationships so that we have a bit more understanding. I don't want to go into a chamber and have like the Jim Alistair kind of stuff, you know. Like I want us to be kinder, and I think people need to see that.
When was the last time that Jim Alistair shouted at you?
I said to Jim, When I first went in, I was like, I'm going to make friends with this man. Like, I am going to become friends with Jim Allister. And I remember the first time being in the chamber electing speaker, I went and sat next to him. And I was like, hi, Jim, how are you? And he looked like a bit shocked. He sat behind us and didn't really say anything. And then I did a debate with him a couple of days later. And I said to him, I was like, you are like such a clever man. And I have so much admiration for your intelligence. But I feel like you don't use your powers for good. And he started to laugh and he said, I do use my powers for good. I'm trying to like create change. And then like that was it. And I thought, I'm gonna keep working on this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and break through, because what I see is someone who like has the things he says and the pain that he's caused other people, like with his views. Like I don't forget that. But for someone to talk the way he does and to be the way he does, I see real pain there. Like he seems like a really hurt person.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like, if we can try and break through. Imagine he had this like revelation where he just wanted to give hugs to everyone and be like really cuddly and sweet. Imagine he changed. That's my revolution.
I suppose, like, you know, as queer people though, as well, like, you know, we can understand the constitutional questions, as you say, and things as well. But there is still like you know, there's obviously like a fear. I think there's the religious oppression that still hangs over us, that affects our lives day and daily, you know, that is kind of being pushed forward by individuals and parties and things like that. You know, I think that sort of becomes a bit more of a frightening thing to interact with, you know.
And I'm not like discounting that. Like I know that.
No.
And I feel like the way you change them is people like me who it's not like, it is personal because I care about people and what's happening, but I have not lived with that. So if anyone can try and like, I don't discount like what he's done and the hurt that he's, and those views especially, and the things that they've said, of course.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there has to be a way of moving forward. And I wonder if instead of like fueling his drama by kind of having a go at him, if people
that's the problem,
are like kinder to him, if that will change. I mean, it's maybe massively naive.
So, like, well, I don't know. I think it's kind of like you do catch more flies with honey than vinegar. It has to be said. But I suppose at the same time, like, you know, I always feel it. There's such a, you know, for people that are like so fiercely intelligent, you know, as we say, like one of the things that for me I feel really allergic to is anybody ever accusing me of being a hypocrite. Do you know? And when there's so much kind of hypocrisy that comes, you know, where we're talking about spending millions and millions of pounds about reinvesting in the city centre and let's bring people in and let's like celebrate all of this stuff. And we're delighted to be part of that. But you know what arguably could help more? Opening shops on a Sunday morning, fixing our public transport system,
letting us go to
letting
a club.
pubs open, fixing our licensing laws, you know, which are still set
I was the only person who ever talked about opening shops on Sundays, and they used to like call me like Yellow Tory because I like said
Yellow
this is
Tory.
This was like alliance kind of. But I met mothers who wanted to be able to like work in retail on a Sunday so they could have a day at home like during the week, and just allow people choice. Like that's the main thing.
Totally.
But no, I know what you mean about hypocrisy, and I guess that is something that I bear in mind. Like when I'm saying those things, it's not to ignore the damage that's caused by our politicians. It's just to question how we actually move them forward.
What the motivations are.
There's what's that Socrates quote, because I find that so helpful in terms of activism and all of that and all of our work.
It's like the best way to bring about social change is not in fighting the old, it's in building the new. So we're very much in that place of, okay, even in terms of activism and things, you know, there's an awful lot of activism is doing great things, has an amazing place, people have something to say. There's also an awful lot that feels like it's people protesting something and doesn't necessarily have a smart goal attached to it that says, what is it you actively want to achieve? Why are you getting people out of their homes to stand in front of City Hall to, you know, raise their placards? And it's like, well, how do you know when you've achieved the answer to it? You know, is it something that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time constrained? How do you know when you've achieved success and then you can move on to the next thing? You know, and I think with we got very sort of tired and frustrated with the so what of it all. You know, it's like we want to do something meaningful that means that you can actually reach the next stage, you know, and actually bring real progress. So that's why we decided like, we're going to do something different.
But that to me is real activism, because you're actually trying to change things. It's not that performative, like I've made a noise about this and now I feel good about myself because I like have said what I needed to, but actually nothing has changed the system. Like what you're doing is real activism.
We're gonna play that on remote. That's what it is.
Kate
It's
says,
not performative, it's real activism.
Thank you.
But listen, I think this is like a perfect time to do our gorgeous little segment that's called Show and Tell Some Love. I believe you've brought us something.
Okay.
Something from the attic, no less.
Yeah, I was late because I had to go and get it from the attic. So this actually is a gift for you and you can keep it. But it's called the Lady's Oracle. And it's a Victorian inspired like fortune teller. So it's questions like ought I to answer the first letter? The person that I am thinking of, does he love me? Shall I have many adventures? And then basically you close your eyes thinking of the question and you put your finger down, and then whatever it lands on, you then turn and it tells you the answer. And the reason why I love this book is when my mum and my dad split up, my mum used to have these disaster parties. And anyone who had a disaster in their lives were invited to her house to these like mad parties.
Fab.
And everyone, usually mainly women, at some point when everyone was really drunk, the Lady's Oracle was passed around and you would like find out your future. And I just thought it'd be a great thing for you to have when you're looking for extra content or you're trying to like get inspiration. But it just like, it was a really important thing in our family. And then my mum, who is like the classist, like she's just the most amazing person.
meet her.
Yeah, you can. She's fab.
We love
she's
to
actually
meet Mamisha.
she's best friends with Kelly McCaughrean, you know, who recently wrote Little Bang, the young adults book about abortion, and then she also wrote Flying Tips for Flightless Birds, which is like a queer teen book and like just amazing.
Yeah.
She'd be a great person for you to interview. But
So
anyway,
that activist energy is sort of travel through to your mum and then through to you as well.
And my mum's just class, and like sacrificed a lot for me. But anyway, she. We always used to do this, and when we were having like a bad day or we weren't sure what to do, or like would ask the Lady's Oracle, and like a lot of the answers are like completely ridiculous. But I just like quite like the idea of where it came from, but also like seeking answers and things. And quite often you already know what the answer is to the question, and so you can laugh at the answer, but it helps you really kind of think about where you're going to go.
It's sort of like, you know, the coin flip thing. It's like, you know, if you don't know whether to get Chinese food or to get a pizza, and you flip you go right, heads will get a Chinese and tails will get a pizza, and you flip the coin and then it lands on the pizza and you're like, no, well, I actually realised
I
in that
wanted
moment
it to be Chinese. Exactly.
I had that exact experience with whether I was going to come back to Belfast or not, because I was, one of the circumstances, I had spoken to my boss whenever I used to work for Diageo in London. I'd spoken to my boss to say, right, I want to move back home. And actually it was because of Brexit changing that made me think, maybe it's a more progressive place than I had once thought. Spoke to my boss. She said, yes, that's no problem. You can move. That's great. So I went about starting the process, selling my house and things like that. And then like the sale was agreed. And then I got a message to say, oh, we're doing a restructure. So actually now we need to keep your head count in London, so you can't move after all. And I was just like, what? You know? And I was still like, am I making the right decision? Am I making the right decision? But whenever I was told I couldn't do it, that was the point where I was like, well, no, I'm going. Because I could have, you know, undone the sale at the time. But I was just like, no, actually, it let me know how I really felt about it, because I was told I couldn't do it.
And so empowering to have like realised that yourself. So this is an oracle that will help guide you, and you can ignore the advice at your will.
Shall we ask it a question?
Yeah, you choose
ask it a
one.
question.
You choose one.
Well,
I'll show you how to do it. So you choose a question, and there are a couple. And like obviously it's Victorian, so it's like a bit heteronormative, but like just
Do you want to
choose one that speaks.
You're a sweetie.
This is so lovely.
That's very thoughtful.
Okay. Do you want to pick a number, and I'll just tell you what the question is?
Yes. So, great. So years ago, I used to be a fortune teller myself. Yeah. So I used to have a RuPaul book. It was like a guru kind of book of quotes. And I used to take it, and you'd flick through.
Sean's like,
Sean is
yeah, have
like
that
a
one,
big
yeah.
RuPaul's Drag Race fan. But yeah, I used to flick through, and I would tell people to tell me to stop, and then when you're flicking, you stop, and then they would pick left or right, or like sort of another part of the book, and I would then tell their fortune based on the book. There's
RuPaul's
something.
Guide to Life.
It worked well.
RuPaul's, it's like that's the modern version of
Yeah.
the Ladies Oracle.
No, I don't think that's how you're meant to use the book. And here it has much less value, but there's something about being Irish out in the world where you're in Australia or whatever, you're somewhere in
People
Asia.
assume that you have the gift.
Yeah. And you're like, here, have I ever told you, a couple of drinks down or whatever else, you go, have I ever told you I'm actually a witch? Or I'm actually I'm a fortune teller.
Yeah,
And
I'm descended from
believe it.
generations of Irish fortune tellers.
Everyone's searching for a shaman, and they're like, we find it in this fucking nutter. Anyway, so
what
pick a number.
number?
What number does it go up to?
It goes up to number 100.
74.
Okay, number 74. Oh, what is the person that I am thinking about doing at this moment?
Okay, so then what you do is you turn to here. So think about your question. What is the person thinking about? Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
And then your finger lands. Okay, so that is a square with like a hash through it.
Right.
Okay, so then you would go to 74. Oh, wait, hang on. Is it at the back? Does it tell you? Yeah. Or there's spells at the back. I didn't know there were spells.
It
in
is.
there.
It's like a Victorian magic 8 bomb.
I love it.
It also reminds you,
Cards
those
Against
like we
Humanity.
like origami things that you would have made,
Yeah.
and it had the different answers.
yes.
Oh, here we go. Sorry, this is how it answers then. So you go to number question 74. 74.
And it's
The one hash. So 65. Page 65, and then look for the hash, and then that will be the answer.
Love. Oh, this is very special.
love
Thank
this.
you.
Okay, so, he suffers and is pining away like a plant without the sun.
And I was thinking of Jim Allister.
You were right. Your empathy levels know no bounds.
It is just to round that off. To round it off, because we don't want to just sit and bitch the back of the man. But to round,
Yeah, other politicians are also questionable.
Yeah, so no, we don't want to bitch. We don't want to bitch the back out of anyone. But just to round it off on what you were saying, it is Brene Brown says, and we use this quote a lot as well, which is it's hard to hate people up close, move in, and that is, it's so important. I remember years ago doing really thinking that I was very progressive. I sort of assumed because I was queer I also understood the rest of it, like I was also a feminist, and I didn't understand what the crack was. I was also I also was accepting of other races and cultures, and that I understood them. I didn't, because I hadn't had the experience. But I remember going to a volunteering in a refugee camp at the height of the Syrian crisis. I'll try to keep this story very, very short and as unemotional as possible. But I was packing in sort of the warehouse space this order that was going to go out to one of the residences. It was in an old kids' summer school, so there were like cabins, but there was a lot of stuff. And I remember thinking, well, I wonder who this is, and I wonder if they've got a massive family and loads of need. If it's you weren't really meant to do it, but unofficially you could arrive and say, look, if you need anything else, or if you really need those shirts, or we've got a load of these things, we'll get you sorted. So I asked for permission and went up and went to go and drop off these items, to go and ask that question. And again, you're not meant to really have. You're told not to build too many personal relationships. 1, for your safety, 2, for your mental health, 3, for people because they've had to have lots of those experiences and have to leave that, and that's quite traumatizing. But when I got there, we got out of the car, and the guy would give the bags, and he took them into the thing. He was very grateful, and this guy then came back outside and said, look, you're really not meant to take anything either, but people often want to give you something, like they want to roll you a cigarette, or they want to make you a cup of tea. And he said, would you have tea? And me and the guy that I was volunteering with, we looked at each other like we're really not allowed, but it was the back of the camp, no one's going to see us, so we're like, yeah, we'll have a tea. It was sitting there, and I think he rolled me a cigarette at the time. And I remember him sitting down and talking about how he was from Syria and he had travelled a little bit of his journey. I didn't ask, but he wanted to share that with us, and how he was a doctor. And a lot of people, a lot of the time, are very keen to tell you of their professional experience because they're not then just a refugee. They're not just someone that's had to flee war, that they are a person. And I remember at the time them telling me that, and then their wife coming out, and she had made up this food, and it was food people who really were travelling with no money had to eat this military food, and it was very, very old, and it was like sort of animal food. It was like it looked very similar, like cat or dog food. It was rotten, but it was what people needed to eat because they needed to survive. So this lady then brought out this pot that she had mixed up. People would put spices in, and it was like a bit of a trade where they're like, if you're driving to the market, would you please pick me up like some whatever salt or whatever it is? But she had made it up. And then she turned to us and says, "Look, you're having tea. Do you want to have some food with us?" And I had actually said no. It's their food. 2, it's not the best. 3, I think it was meaty, and I was just like, no, it's not really my thing. But we sat there anyways. And when she sat down, then 3 of her children came out. And I'm from a family of 3. And there's 2 boys and 1 girl. And 2 boys and 1 girl sat down. And there was a moment, I spoke about this in therapy and never quite been able to process it. But there was a moment where I seen my father in him. And I seen my mum in that woman. And I could see my family. And there was, I kind of always believed that I knew what the crack was and I understood what I was doing. I was there. But it was really in that moment that I realised that actually people from the other side of the world with different skin colours, with different experiences, with different religious or moral values or codes out there, that we're human and that we're the same. It really broke me. I kind of had to very quickly excuse myself and got into the car. It's really important that you don't further traumatize someone. It's if someone tells you something very traumatic, it's important to take it on board, but maybe not react. When someone's like, "I'm going through this thing," it's the worst thing sometimes to say, "Oh my God," because it says,
"So did I." Yeah.
Yes, or
yeah.
either so did I, or worse still, isn't that terrible? And it gives them people the impression. I remember it happening to me, struggling with things, and people give you this idea that they couldn't cope with that. I don't know how you cope with that, and it's really dangerous because it's like you're barely coping with it.
You're such an inspiration. That sort of
and it's that you're extra special for being able to sort of process this. But I remember at the time getting into the car and really trying not to show emotion, but really exiting quite quick, down in this boiling hot tea, just down my neck, probably burnt myself, got in with this guy, and I sat and sort of put myself back so that he was sort of covering me, and just started bawling. I cried for hours. They actually had to take me. I was sort of bringing the vibe down so majorly in the clothes sorting place that my friend and project coordinator Holly had to take me and basically put me behind a set of bushes. She was like, "Sit here. There's your tobacco. Roll all the cigarettes you want. I don't need you for today. Just you need to get these tears out of you first." And I swear I was like, maybe an hour later she came back. She was like, Are you sort of done crying? And I was like, no, like I can't believe it. It was a real realization, that actually that we're all one and that we're all the same. What happens with us when people are like, "Oh, yous are queers and yeah, we're together, but I'm gay and you're bisexual," and I don't know, sort of work that out in your own head. But it's when people meet us and they're like, "Oh, well, do you know, I'm not really," I can think of friends, actually people that have helped us over the last wee while that actually have came from the perspective of actually been really quite homophobic and really quite hateful towards queer people, to now they're helping us move. And this person won't mind that we said this out loud, to now they're people that are really very close to us, people who the other day we went to reach this person, we went to go and reach the same handle in the van and we touched and we had a whole conversation. His reaction was like, "Oh, sorry about that," and my reaction was, "We're gonna talk about this on our wedding day."
You can go into a joking place, because there's safety and warmth and friendship,
Because that was electric, and you can't deny it. But it just takes that. It takes
humanizing
to have those experiences, to meet those people, to actually be in the room, to sometimes realize that, and realize that actually you're just like them, because it's much easier for you then to work for them and for us then to do a job to help other communities. And
it's like the active work that you've just described of actually letting your boundaries down, which I suppose is whenever you've got like a shared goal of working together, that's an easier thing for you then to do in that moment, because there's an end goal of that. It's by letting your boundaries down for a time you can have those human relationships, and you're much more likely to bring people along on the journey with you if they don't feel attacked. Do you know, as you say?
There's a nice round to that story. So this man, I won't identify him, but I kept in contact with him. Again, you're really not meant to. But we connected on Facebook. He was one of the camp elders, so it was actually helpful doing stuff to have that contact. And we stayed friends, and we sort of checked in along the way. But I remember at the time them asking, where should we go? And I didn't know how it worked. Like, I didn't really know anything about anything. And I remember saying, we should go to Ireland. You know, it's full of lovely people. They're very accepting. They maybe they're better than their neighbours at this, and better than actually even beyond that, you know, some of the other countries that you're going to have to travel through. You know, from my perspective, that's sort of what I think, but it's the only real perspective that I have. Well, he put Ireland first on his forms with the UN, and he was granted asylum in Ireland, so he ended up making it the whole way here. He was put into, which was really something for me to process, but put into a direct provision camp. So it was really, like, I remember checking in and me being the person to say, these are good people that look after you, checking in and realising that this person was living in probably worse conditions than what I've seen them in Greece. Was really a lot. But recently enough, we connected and he let me know that he's out, that they found a place, that they're starting a life, that they're very grateful to the people that they're working with and people that have helped them along the way, and that they, after all those years, and that was years ago, but after all those years, they're able to really just have a place of their own and not have someone call, you know, be able to go and get a job. You know, that's a key thing within all of this.
Right to work and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely really scared about the way things are at the moment. And
Same.
we know that kind of Tories and hostile environment, like, that's horrible, and everything that comes from that is awful, but I'm really scared about what's happening in the south. And I had a recent call with like a number of different agencies in England, like UNHCR and different groups, and some organizations in the south, and they're talking about kind of 600 single men who are sleeping in tents at the moment, like in the weather, and it's not politically popular to talk about it, and you're seeing extreme right, but also those on the far left as well, like just not doing enough about it. And of course you would expect your friend to be treated well in Ireland. Like this is an island that's known for its hospitality and its warmth, and and to be honest, Connor, like it was the best thing for him to come here, because like direct provision is awful, but once you're in the system, once you're able to rebuild your life, I don't think there's anywhere better to rebuild. So your advice was still right, like, don't carry that guilt. But we need to make sure that the system is fixed, and there are the other parties, like I think Sinn Féin are in a very difficult position, like what's happening in the south, and kind of chasing votes around housing, and you know it's very charged, but you have to do the right thing, and the right thing is, as you say, acknowledging our common humanity and value and importance and worth, and making sure that public services support everyone.
I would love it if there was more truth telling about what's happening. I feel like people are scared to talk about the fact that capitalism and people that are buying houses from businesses are buying houses that are pricing people out of the market. You know, there's not like enough dialogue on that and that being problematic, because people are scared of, you know, the big retailers not coming in and investing in your city centre. It's like, they don't care. They will come and invest if it's good for them to do that or not, you know. But I think,
what are you doing for your people?
You know, you're going to say we could talk to you all day long, honestly, but
could.
I'm very aware that you've got a Channel 4 interview to
I need to show
you're
my
going to be worried to
t-shirt.
show some love? Would you take the blazer off for it?
Should have had it off for the whole thing.
It's freezing in here, but
I mean,
Actually, it's so cold in here. I've been sitting with my arms folded. It's not like bad body language. It's just
last week I looked so. Did you see the podcast last week? Oh, so it hasn't went out yet. You've seen it because you produced it.
It's going out today.
But God, I look so skinny. I wore a t-shirt. I'm like slim.
Like arm positioning.
I love it. The night
special.
before, did a coffee scrub. I painted my beard in. That's top secret, but there we go. Just told the world. Painted my beard in. Got my hair done. I was ready, but by the end of it, I'm like physically just sort of freezing.
freezing.
I'm
It's like it's pretty cold.
Uh-huh.
But I'll have it off for the channel.
Oh, thank you.
But yes, we could talk to you all day, but
it's been
we don't
such
want
a
to take any more of
joy.
your time. Thank you so much for this.
That is
it's
such
it's
a
for
lovely
you.
thing.
Yeah.
It's really
honestly.
sweet. Really, truly.
And when you
Absolutely
need
love
some
it.
guidance, It will give
And
really ineffective
Perfect.
advice.
Perfect.
No, but you know what? You see, even in that moment, it did.
You found the right thing in it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
here.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all the work you're doing. And do you know, like, I think that, like, you know this, and I know this because we kind of left and then came back. But
Yes.
so many young people have felt like they can't be proud of this city and that they don't really belong, or that they have to go elsewhere. And you're doing work not just to kind of support people who are marginalized, but also just to, like, as you always say, bring light and bring a bit of pride, you know, that this is a great place to live and it can be even better. And I just think you're class and what you're doing is great. So thank you.
Well,
This is
right
one
back
big
at
love
you.
hymn.
I know.
So much love.
Well, hopefully, I know you're always busy, because only part of your job is being in that building that wasn't, actively in work in the last couple of
If
years.
one more person says to me, "Oh, it'd be great to go back to work,"
I know that it's mad. That
I work 6 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. But we know that is going to add to your workload now. But hopefully, even with what we're doing, and we'll get to be able to show you around our new
Oh,
site. very
I'd
soon
love
and
to.
stuff
You
as
always,
well.
you
Can't
always
wait.
have my support, and yeah,
we're very
we'll do our
grateful.
part 2 installment then on the stress.
Yes,
Love it.
I love it. I
People
love
having
it.
to climb over us, lounging during the podcast would be great.
Totally,
Well,
let's do it.
As ever, we're very, very thankful. We've been very thankful from the time you give us your time and your presence when you were mayor. It was great to meet you then. It's great. It's always good to see you. And I think it's important in this not to sort of fawn too much. Really,
You
even
need to
just,
be able to hold me accountable as well when I do something shitty. So
yes,
yeah.
but we do.
I mean, yes, but I can't see it, to be honest.
But for all that we say this a lot, and we said it in the post as well when we're talking about it. But for all that we're a non-partisan organisation, we make an exception for you. We really like you.
But
So-
we can like the human, as well,
Yeah.
and the things that are being said and done. It's like actions speak louder than words, So as an organisation, we're not like slotting ourselves into any camps at all, but we can still like shine light on the individual people and things
Thank
that
you.
are happening. So so thank you so much for your time, and we're very grateful. We'll see you soon. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and hope you've enjoyed. Make sure and give us your comments and your feedback and your subscribes. But show some love. Bye bye.
we're fucking nice, mate.